If you had asked 22-year-old me what my future with Ethan would look like, I would have said something cheesy like 2 kids, a golden retriever, and a cute little starter home. I would not have said, sitting across from him in a glass-walled HR conference room, terminating his employment for ethics violations. But life has a dark sense of humor. My name is Melissa. I'm 31 now. I work in human resources for a large software company in Chicago, and my ex-fiancé once dumped me for having too much debt. 5 years later, he had to ask me where to sign his separation papers. I didn't plan it that way. Karma just finally lined our paperwork up. Ethan and I met in college at a small state school in Indiana. He was that guy tall, easy smile, business major who acted like he was already a CEO. He carried a leather portfolio to class sophomore year. He wore polos with the little horse logo even when it was snowing. I was the first-generation kid who worked 20 hours a week at the campus dining hall and another 10 tutoring freshmen in statistics. My wardrobe was mostly thrift store finds and whatever my mom bought at Kohl's on clearance. We met in a group project for organizational behavior. Ethan volunteered to be team lead within the first 5 minutes. I volunteered to create the Gantt chart and make sure things actually happened. We were opposites in obvious ways, but we clicked. He liked that I was driven. I liked that he seemed to see me as more than the broke girl with 2 jobs. He came from the kind of family I'd only seen on TV. His parents owned a successful dental practice. They had a big brick house, took ski trips in winter and beach trips in summer, and gave Ethan a paid-off used BMW when he turned 21, so he wouldn't have to worry about car payments. Mine loved me, but they also loved using phrases like "we're not made of money" and "loans are how normal people do college." By junior year, Ethan and I were inseparable. We studied together, cooked cheap dinners in his off-campus apartment, talked about our future. "We'll both get good jobs," he'd say, sprawled on the futon, head in my lap. "Buy a little house. You'll be the practical one. I'll be the big picture guy. Power couple." It sounded perfect. We graduated into the tail end of a recession. Jobs were scarce. Ethan's parents knew a guy who knew a guy, and suddenly he had an entry-level sales role at a medical supplies company, starting at $48,000 plus commission. I cobbled together a job as an HR assistant at a manufacturing plant 30 miles from my hometown. It paid $32,000 a year. I was thrilled. Ethan was supportive, but he liked to tease. "HR, huh?" he'd say. "So you're going to be the fun police." "It's more than that," I'd say. "It's about helping people, making sure things are fair." He'd chuckle. "Sure," he'd say. "Just don't go crazy with the diversity trainings." I let comments like that slide more often than I should have. We moved in together into a little apartment near his job. I commuted an hour each way. On the nights I wasn't collapsing into bed, we dreamed about the future. Ethan wanted to propose. His mom wanted him to wait until you're more established, but he ignored her. One night, after an especially long week, he made us actual dinner, not microwaved leftovers, and handed me a small velvet box across the table. "Open it," he said, grinning. Inside was a simple diamond ring, about half a carat, in a delicate gold band. It was perfect. "Marry me," he said. "We'll figure the rest out." I said yes, of course. We called our parents. His mom squealed. Mine asked, "Are you sure?" Then cried happy tears. For a few weeks it felt like a dream. Then we scheduled our first real adult conversation about money, and the dream cracked. Our premarital counselor at church had given us a worksheet. "Be completely honest about your finances," she'd said. "No secrets going into marriage." It made sense. I wasn't hiding anything. I just didn't realize how much those numbers would matter to him. One Saturday afternoon, we sat at our tiny kitchen table with laptops and legal pads. Ethan was almost excited. "Okay," he said. "Let's build our empire. Income, savings, debt, credit scores. Lay it all out." He pulled up his bank's app and read off his info like a podcast host. Salary, $55K now with recent raise. 401K, around $9K, company match. Savings, about 7,500. Debt, none. Credit score, 788, baby. I clapped. That's great, I said. Seriously. He puffed up a little. Your turn, he said. I opened my own accounts. Salary, $36K, I said. I got a cost of living bump when I hit my 1-year mark. 401K, $3K. Savings, about $1,200. He nodded, tapping numbers into a spreadsheet. And debt? He asked. Here we go. Student loans, I said. Right now about $68,000. And a credit card with, about $14,000. His fingers froze on the keyboard. Wait, he said slowly. You owe $82,000? About that, I said. It was more, but I've been paying. My parents could only help a little, and I went full-time. So, I tried to smile, tried to show I wasn't ashamed. But his face had gone pale. You said you had loans, he said. I thought you meant like 20 grand, not a mortgage. It's not a mortgage, I said. And I'm on an income-based repayment plan while I'm early in my career. I've never missed a payment. And the credit card? He asked, voice tight. When my car died senior year and my parents couldn't help, I had to put the repairs on a card, I said. Then when I first moved for the job, I had some months where rent and deposits ate everything. But I've been chipping away at it. It's not like I'm out shopping every weekend. He leaned back, staring at the wall. Oh my God, he muttered. I felt my chest tighten. It's not ideal, I said carefully, but it's manageable. I've been snowballing payments. With 2 incomes, we can with 2 incomes. We're starting in a hole, he cut in. A huge hole. Do you have any idea what that does to our ability to buy a house? To have kids? I don't know, breathe? He sounded genuinely panicked. I'd expected concern. I hadn't expected disgust. Yes, I know, I said. I've been living with these numbers for years. I want to pay it off as fast as we can too. But it's not a moral failing, Ethan. It's how a lot of people get through school. My parents paid for my school, he said. They saved, they planned. They didn't saddle themselves with debt. That's what responsible adults do. The implication hung in the air. I swallowed. I didn't have that option, I said. I did the best I could. He shook his head. You took out more than you could ever pay back on your own, he said. You're expecting me to step in and rescue you. That's not what I'm expecting, I said, heat rising in my face. I never asked you to pay my loans. I just thought we'd be a team. Like you always say, being a team doesn't mean dragging someone into your mess, he said. My throat closed. This isn't a mess, I said softly. It's my education. It's the reason I have a job at all. And you knew I didn't come from money when you proposed. Knowing you didn't come from money is different from realizing you're $82,000 underwater, he snapped. Do you know how that makes me look? To my parents? To a bank? My heart sank. Is this about how you look? I asked. Or about how we build a life together? He didn't answer. He just stared at the spreadsheet like it had personally insulted him. We didn't talk much the rest of the day. Sunday, he went to his parents' house to clear his head. Monday night, he came home with a manila folder and a hollow look in his eyes. We need to talk, he said. I knew, but hearing the words still felt like a punch. He sat at the table, folder in front of him like a shield. I talked to my parents about our situation, he began. Our situation, not our engagement. Your situation, I corrected automatically. He ignored that. My dad sat down with me and we ran some numbers, he said. With your debt-to-income ratio, any decent financial planner would tell me I'd be crazy to sign up for that. Marriage is a financial contract as much as anything. If we get married, your debt becomes my problem. I'd be taking on risk I didn't create. I looked at him, really looked. The man who'd once said we'll figure it out now sounded like he was negotiating a hostile takeover. So what are you saying? I asked, even though I already knew. He exhaled. I can't do it, he said. I can't start my life one bad stretch away from bankruptcy, because of decisions you made before we even met. Tears stung my eyes. I didn't choose my parents' income, I said. I didn't choose to get sick that semester and lose my scholarship for a year. I didn't choose to have my car die when I had no savings. I did what I had to do to not drop out. He shook his head. You chose to keep spending, he said. To go out, to travel, to buy stuff everything I own fits in this 600 square foot apartment. I snapped. The travel was visiting my mom when she had surgery. And you know it. Don't rewrite history just because you're scared. He flinched. I'm not scared, he said. I'm being smart. I want a family someday. I want a house. I want options. I can't have that if I'm chained to your loans. So what now? I asked, voice trembling. You just walk away? After 3 years? After proposing? He opened the folder. Inside was the ring box. He slid it across the table. You're a good person, Mel, he said. You'll find someone who doesn't care about this. But I have to think long term. I refuse to start my life paying for someone else's mistakes. My mistakes. My education. My financial reality. I never thought you were this shallow, I whispered. I never thought you were this reckless, he shot back. We stared at each other like strangers. Finally, he stood. I'll move out by the end of the month, he said. You can keep the apartment if you want. The lease is in your name anyway. How generous, I said. He winced. I didn't cry until he closed the door behind him. The next few months were a blur of heartbreak, paperwork, and quiet rage. My mom wanted me to fight for him. He's just scared, she said. Maybe if you show him a budget. I showed him a budget, I said. He saw me working double shifts for 2 years. He doesn't want me. He wants a balance sheet he can brag about. My dad, more blunt, said, if a man bails because you're not a clean asset, you don't want him. He sent me $100 for pizza with a note. Don't marry anyone who talks about you like you're a liability. I changed my number. I blocked Ethan on social media, but mutual friends kept sending screenshots. First, it was his Facebook status. Sometimes you have to walk away from people who don't match your ambition. Then, 6 months later, engagement photos with a woman named Kelsey. They were on a beach, her ring visibly twice the size of mine. Someone tagged him in a comment. Upgrade. Another friend messaged me privately. His fiancé's loaded. Her dad bought them a condo. Ethan saying he finally found someone on his level. It stung. I unfollowed everyone who kept dragging his life into my feed. Instead, I focused on mine. I picked up more responsibilities at the plant onboarding, employee relations, learning the legal side of HR. I sat through endless training sessions on FMLA, ADA, EOC guidelines. The more I learned, the more I realized how sloppy some managers were with people's livelihoods. I also realized something else. HR, when done right, could be a shield as much as a sword. Good HR people could protect employees from shady bosses. Or from themselves. I wanted to be that kind of HR. So I made a plan. I'd get certified, finish my bachelor's, and get out of the plant. I started an online HR management program, took the PHR exam, and passed. I stopped seeing my debt as a shameful secret and started seeing it as a project. Every small raise, every tax refund, every freelance resume I wrote on the side went toward the highest interest balances. Progress was slow, but it was mine. 3 years after Ethan slid that ring back across the table, my student loans were down to $42,000 and the credit card was at zero. I got an email from a recruiter for a big software company in Chicago, Lumina Tech. They were looking for an HR generalist with manufacturing experience. The salary range made my eyes bug out. I applied. I got it. I moved to Chicago with 2 suitcases, a hoo-haul full of IKEA furniture, and no one to consult about how my debt would make them look. It felt like shedding a skin. Lumina Tech was another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Cold brew on tap. A diversity and AMP inclusion council that actually had a budget. I went from dealing with time clock disputes and steel-toe boots to mediating Slack arguments and explaining to engineers that we can't just pay your favorite new hire whatever you feel like because she's a rock star. I loved it. I took every HR project I could: policy rewrites, investigations, performance reviews. Within 2 years, I was promoted to Senior HR Business Partner for the Sales and Marketing Division. That meant I was the primary HR contact for about 300 employees, including frontline sales reps and their managers. I helped managers hire and fire. I coached people through conflicts. I sat in on promotion discussions, making sure things were fair and documented. I also occasionally saw the worst of people. One rep who screamed at a junior colleague until she cried. Another who fudged numbers to make his quarterly bonus. I learned to keep my face neutral while my mind cataloged every red flag. By then, I'd paid off my credit card entirely, refinanced my student loans to a lower rate, and gotten the balance down to the 30s. I still had debt, but it no longer felt like an anchor. It felt like background noise. My dating life was complicated. I went out with a few men who made passive-aggressive comments about people who carry balances. I stopped seeing them. Eventually, I met someone Noah who, when I told him about my loans, said, "So, you invested in yourself. Cool. How's the interest rate? We're still together." But he's not the point of this story. Ethan is. Because 5 years after he broke off our engagement due to my massive debt, he walked into my work life like a ghost from a spreadsheet. It was a Tuesday morning. I was scanning my inbox when I saw the automated notification. New hire orientation sales division facilitator. Melissa Wong attendees. List of names. I skimmed the list. Account exec, marketing analyst, sales associate Ethan Cole. My heart stopped. Cole is a common last name. I told myself it could be anyone, but my hand was already clicking. I pulled up the new hire file. Ethan Michael Cole. Date of birth, same as his. Address, suburbs outside the city. Former employer, the same medical supplies company he'd worked for after college. There was even a scanned copy of his driver's license. His face, a little older, stared back at me. For a moment, my world tilted. I hadn't seen him in person since he walked out of our apartment. He didn't know I worked here. We didn't run in the same circles. Chicago is both huge and very small. Apparently his company had been acquired and downsized. He'd been laid off. Lumina Tech sales VP, hungry for people with medical tech experience, had snatched him up. He didn't know that accepting meant sitting through orientation led by the woman whose life he once called a financial disaster. I sat back, heart pounding. Then I did what HR people do when our emotions flare at inopportune moments. I documented. I walked into my director's office. "Hey, Priya," I said. "Quick heads up, I just saw a new hire in sales is my ex-fiancé." Her eyebrows flew up. "Oh," she said. "That kind of ex?" "That kind," I said. "We were engaged." He broke it off. It was messy. I wanted to flag the conflict. "I can step back from being his direct HR contact if you think that's best." She thought for a moment. "Company policy says HR employees should avoid handling sensitive matters involving close family or personal relationships," she said. "But basic onboarding isn't usually considered a conflict. Let's do this. You run orientation like normal. I'll be the one to handle any performance or disciplinary stuff for him going forward. That way, no one can say you had it out for him." Relief and disappointment washed over me at the same time. Part of me wanted distance. Another part wanted to see his face when he realized who'd be explaining his benefits package. I nodded. "Got it," I said. "Thanks for the guidance. Also," she added, "if at any point this gets too weird for you, tell me. We'll switch portfolios. No job is worth losing your sanity over an ex." I appreciated that. But I also heard an echo of my younger self, sitting at that kitchen table, being told my worth was in my credit score. Maybe, I thought, it was time for him to see how far I'd come. Orientation day, I wore my best I'm in charge but still approachable outfit. Navy blazer, soft blouse, comfortable flats. I set up the training room with name tents and packets. At 8:59 a.m., the last new hire walked in. Ethan. He scanned the room, chatting easily with a guy in a suit. Then his eyes landed on me. He froze mid-step. For a second, his face went completely blank. Then color rushed up his neck. "Good morning, everyone," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I'm Melissa Wong, Senior HR Business Partner for Sales and Marketing. I'll be walking you through orientation." Our eyes met. He swallowed. "Please find your name tint and have a seat," I continued, as if my heart wasn't pounding loud enough to shake the windows. He took the furthest seat from me. I went through the slides on company history, values, benefits, code of conduct. I made eye contact with every new hire except him. But I could feel his gaze like a spotlight. When I reached the section on conflicts of interest and relationships at work, I paused for half a second. If you have a close personal relationship with someone in your reporting line or on your HR team, I said, clicking to the bullet point, please disclose it to HR so we can make sure there are no conflicts of interest. We don't want anyone to feel their situation is being handled unfairly, positively or negatively. I didn't look directly at Ethan. I didn't need to. The air between us crackled. At the break, while others grabbed coffee, he hovered near the doorway. When the others filed out, he stepped closer. "Melissa," he said quietly. I looked up, face neutral. "Hi, Ethan," I said. "Welcome to Lumina Tech. You work here?" he said, as if that weren't obvious. "I do," I said. "Have for 3 years. In HR," he added. "In HR," I confirmed. He swallowed. "You look good," he said awkwardly. "You always were organized. This fits you." "Thank you," I said. "Let's make sure you sign all your onboarding forms today. We'll get your badge activated by end of day." He hesitated. "About before," he said. This isn't the time," I interrupted gently. "We're at work. If you have questions about HR-related policies, I'm happy to answer. Anything else ... is outside this room." His jaw tightened. "Right," he said. "All business." "Got it. At least we agree on something," I said. He went back to his seat. The rest of orientation passed in a blur. As promised, Priya officially assigned his employee file to herself in our system. Technically, I wouldn't be the one deciding his fate, but I was still the HR presence in his world. And he knew it. At first, Ethan behaved himself. Maybe he was trying to prove something. He showed up on time. He hit his early targets. He dazzled managers with the same charm that once won me over. "He's a natural," the sales director, Marco, told me a few weeks in. "We're lucky to have snagged him. Must be weird, having your ex on your book, huh?" "Technically, he's not directly on my book," I said, sticking to the script. "But, yes, it's ... an adjustment." Marco laughed. "If it makes you feel better, he's terrified of you," he said. "Said you turned into his worst nightmare. Corporate HR. I told him to quit saying that where you can hear it." I raised an eyebrow. "He said that?" I asked. "Don't worry," Marco said quickly. I reminded him that HR signs off on promotions. I smiled thinly. "Good," I said, "because HR also signs off on terminations." He gulped. Then we both laughed, but the truth hung between us. Around the office, Ethan made a point of being extra polite to me. "Morning, Melissa," he'd say, overly formal. "Morning," I'd reply, no more, no less. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about debt. We just existed in the same ecosystem. Until his old habits caught up. 6 months in, anonymous HR complaints started trickling in. At first, they were vague. Certain sales reps are pressuring us to massage numbers to make deals look better. Some people in sales are bragging about skipping required trainings and still getting bonuses. Priya handled the general intake. We launched a mini audit, checking sales records, cross-referencing call logs, interviewing a few people. Patterns emerged, and Ethan's name came up more than once. One junior rep, who I'll call Jenna, finally came to me directly. She was 23, smart, clearly nervous. "Can I talk to you, off the record?" she asked, hovering at my office door. "I can listen," I said. "If it turns into something HR needs to act on, I'll tell you before we escalate." but I can't promise total off the record if there's a policy issue. She nodded, twisting her hands. It's about Ethan, she said. My stomach tightened. What about him? I asked, keeping my tone even. He's my team lead, she said. He's supposed to be mentoring me, but lately he's been telling me to mark calls as qualified opportunities even when the customer clearly isn't ready. He says it makes our pipeline look better, and everyone does it. When I hesitated, he said I was too soft for sales and that if I wanted a good review, I should trust his experience. I took a breath. Has he said anything else? I asked. Threatened you, harassed you in other ways? She shook her head. Not like that, she said. He just makes me feel like if I don't play along, I'll be labeled difficult. And he drops your name a lot. Says he knows how HR thinks, and that if numbers look good, you won't question details. A cold anger flared. He says what? I asked. That you care about metrics more than methods, she said. And that as long as his team hits quota, you'll rubber stamp anything. That was both insulting and stupid. Thank you for telling me, I said. What you're describing is a potential ethics violation. Our policies are clear. Falsifying records or pressuring others to misreport is serious. I need to escalate this to Priya and to compliance. Are you okay with that? She bit her lip, then nodded. I just don't want to lose my job, she said. You won't, I said. We don't punish people for telling the truth. I'll keep your name as confidential as possible. But given his comments, he might guess. If anything changes, if he retaliates, if anyone harasses you for speaking up, you come to me immediately. That's not negotiable. She exhaled shakily. Okay, she said. Thank you. After she left, I went straight to Priya. We pulled Ethan's training records. He'd completed the Code of Conduct module, but had skipped the optional deep dive on ethical sales. We pulled team performance data. His numbers were good, almost too good for a new hire. We need a full investigation, Priya said. This goes to compliance and legal. Given the conflict, I'll be the official HR lead, but I'll need your institutional knowledge about sales. Got it, I said. And Melissa, she added, this is where it's extra important that we treat him like anyone else. No harsher, no softer, clear documentation, no side comments about your history. Can you do that? I nodded. I've waited years to win because of my work, not my feelings, I said. We'll do it by the book. The investigation process was formal and slow. Compliance pulled call logs and CRM entries. We compared audio from recorded calls to how Ethan and his team had coded them. We found discrepancies. Lots of them. Deals marked as qualified when the customer had clearly said, call me back next year. Opportunities logged as 90% likely when the prospect had barely agreed to a demo. Ethan wasn't the only offender, but he was the common denominator. He'd coached his team into inflating numbers to look good to leadership. When confronted individually, several reps admitted that he'd pressured them. Jenna's account was backed up by 2 others. The final step was to interview him. Technically, Priya was the lead, but as the HRBP for sales, I was still in the room. When Ethan walked into the small conference room and saw us both sitting there with folders, his swagger faltered. He sat down, tried to smile. This feels serious, he said. Priya's tone was calm but firm. We're conducting a formal investigation into potential violations of our code of conduct in the sales division, she said. Specifically around pipeline reporting and pressure on junior reps. You're here today as an employee who may have relevant information. This is a fact-finding conversation, not a criminal proceeding, but it is serious. Do you understand? He nodded, glancing at me. And Melissa's here because, he asked. I'm the HR business partner for your org, I said. Priya is leading the investigation, but I support this division and will help with any follow-up actions. Also, per policy, 2 HR reps are present in these interviews. He chewed his cheek. Okay, he said. Shoot. For the next 45 minutes, Priya asked questions. She showed him anonymized summaries of what reps had reported. She walked him through specific deals where the CRM data didn't match the call recordings. Each time, he had an answer. Everyone inflates a little. It's how sales works. I was just optimistic that I never told anyone to lie. I advised them on how to see potential. When she mentioned Jenna's description of feeling pressured, his tone sharpened. She's too sensitive, he said. Not everyone is cut out for this job. If she can't handle a little push, that's on her. Priya kept her expression neutral. I'm going to remind you that retaliation against anyone who participates in an investigation is strictly prohibited, she said. Whatever happens here, you are not to comment about it with coworkers in a way that singles anyone out, he scoffed. So they can accuse me of anything they want, and I have to just smile, he said. You have to behave professionally, I said quietly. He turned to me then. You must be loving this, he said. Me on the hot seat, you in the power chair. I held his gaze. This isn't about you and me, I said. This is about whether you follow company policy. Treat it that way. He laughed bitterly. You really bought the corporate Kool-Aid, huh? He said. No wonder you didn't mind being 80 grand in debt. You always believed someone else's system would save you. I felt the old hurt flare, but I let it pass. Your debt isn't the one on the table today, I said evenly. Your integrity is. Priya cleared her throat. Let's stay focused, she said. Do you have anything else you want to add about how you coach your team around reporting? He shrugged. I push them to hit numbers, he said. That's my job. If you don't like the results, maybe your targets are wrong. When he left, slamming the door a little too hard, Priya exhaled. Well, she said, he's not doing himself any favors. Are we done? I asked. Almost, she said. We need to summarize our findings and make a recommendation. Based on the evidence, I'm leaning toward termination for cause. Falsifying records and pressuring others to do the same is a major violation. His attitude in there didn't help. I nodded. I agree, I said. I need you to write up your HRBP perspective, she said. Stick to facts, no editorializing, then legal will review. I went back to my desk and wrote. I outlined the pattern of discrepancies. The corroborated accounts of pressure. His dismissive responses about everyone does it. I didn't mention our history. I didn't need to. The numbers told enough of a story. Legal signed off. Marco, the sales director, was disappointed but not surprised. I hoped he'd grow up, he said. Turns out he's just really good at selling until someone checks the receipts. The CEO, who took ethics seriously, approved the decision. We scheduled the termination meeting. Priya could have done it alone. But as his HRBP, it was still technically my job. And as the woman he once said was bad wife material because of debt, it felt important to be there. Termination meetings are my least favorite part of HR. I've had to fire people for attendance issues, harassment, theft. It never gets easy. I always remind myself, my job isn't to punish. It's to deliver a decision fairly, clearly, and respectfully, even when the person across from me has hurt me before. The morning of Ethan's meeting, I reviewed his file one more time. I also, for my own closure, pulled up my student loan portal. Balance, $29,400. Less than half of what it had been when he'd walked out. I smiled. Then I went to the conference room. He walked in a few minutes later. He must have sensed something. His expression was wary. Should I be worried? He asked, trying to joke as he sat. Priya was there, folder in front of her. I was beside her, notepad closed. Ethan, Priya began, thank you for coming in. We've concluded our investigation into the concerns raised about pipeline reporting in your team. His jaw flexed. And? He asked. She took a breath. The evidence shows a consistent pattern of you encouraging your team to code opportunities more favorably than the customer communication warranted, she said. Multiple reps reported feeling pressured to inflate numbers. Our review of call recordings and CRM data supports their accounts. That violates our code of conduct and our sales reporting policy. He scoffed. So what? I get a write-up, he said. We all move on? Priya shook her head. Given the severity and the fact that you're in a position of influence, she said, we've decided to terminate your employment effective today. This decision has been reviewed by HR, legal, and senior leadership. His face went white, then red. "You're firing me?" he said, incredulous. "Over this? Over documented violations of policy and misuse of your leadership position," she said. "Yes." He turned to me, eyes blazing. "You're okay with this?" he demanded. "You, of all people, signing off on ruining my career?" I met his gaze. "I didn't make this decision alone," I said. "Your actions did. I just helped document them." He laughed harshly. "You must feel so righteous," he said. "The girl with the mountain of debt turned corporate executioner. Congratulations." Priya's tone sharpened. "Ethan, personal attacks are not appropriate," she said. "We can end this meeting quickly and professionally, or we can note your behavior as further justification." He slumped back, breathing hard. "What happens now?" he asked, voice flat. "We'll walk you through your separation package," Priya said. "Because this is termination for cause, you're not eligible for severance, but HR will answer questions about benefits and final pay. We'll also provide you with a copy of our findings. Security will escort you to gather your personal items." "Perfect," he muttered. "Just perfect." I slid the paperwork toward him. "Here's the official notice," I said. "You can choose to sign acknowledging receipt. It doesn't mean you agree, just that you've been informed." He stared at the pages. His hand shook as he signed. As we stood to leave, he looked at me one more time. "I left you because I didn't want to be dragged down," he said quietly, bitterness dripping from every word. Looked like I made the right call. I paused at the door. "You left me because you couldn't see past a number on a page," I said. "You thought debt defined my character. Turns out character is in how you act when no one's watching you fill out forms." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Security arrived. They walked him out. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Priya looked at me. "You okay?" she asked. I exhaled. "Yeah," I said. "We did what we had to do." "You handled that well," she said. I know it had to be tempting to say more. "Oh, you have no idea," I said, smiling weakly. We both laughed. Then I went back to my office and closed the door. I let myself cry, just a little, not for him, but for the version of me who once thought his opinion of my worth mattered more than my own. Word spread, as it always does. HR doesn't gossip, but employees do. Jenna stopped by my office a few days later. "Is it true?" she asked. "Ethan's gone?" "Yes," I said. "I can't share details, but I can say that when people speak up, we take it seriously, and we protect them." She smiled, relief softening her shoulders. "Thank you," she said. I almost didn't report it. I thought, maybe that's just how sales is. "It's not," I said. "Not here anyway. If anyone ever tells you you have to bend your values to succeed, they're wrong." She nodded. "I believe you," she said. Later that month, my student loan servicer emailed me an update offering a new payment plan. I logged in, ran some scenarios. With my current salary and a bit of belt tightening, I could be debt-free in 3 years. I accepted the plan. I printed the new amortization schedule and pinned it to my corkboard behind a family photo. A reminder that numbers can be scary, but they're also conquerable. Ethan reached out once, months later, from a Gmail address I didn't recognize. "Guess you finally got your revenge. Hope it was worth it." I stared at the email. Then I archived it without replying. It wasn't revenge. Not really. I hadn't manipulated the system to hurt him. I'd just refused to protect him from the consequences of his own choices. Ironically, it was exactly what he claimed to be doing when he walked away from me. The difference was, my choices had been about survival and education. His were about shortcuts and ego. People sometimes ask if I feel guilty. If, given our past, I should have recused myself completely from anything to do with his career. Maybe some would have. But I know this, I didn't twist the policies to get him. I followed them. The way no one had followed fairness for me when he called me bad wife material in front of his parents. I also know that if I ever start dating someone who flinches at the word debt, I'll show them my own journey as exhibit of that number's change. Character is harder. Now, when I sit across from a scared new hire, filling out their direct deposit form and they confess they're drowning in loans, I don't judge. I tell them, "You're not alone. Let's talk about the benefits and resources we have that might help." I'm the HR person I needed at 22. My fiancé once dumped me over debt. He thought my finances proved I wasn't worth the risk. 5 years later, I was the person sitting in the decision-maker's chair while his own choices caught up with him. He was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about one. I wasn't wife material for him. I was HR boss material. And in the end, I didn't need his approval to sign my own future.